Okay.
Okay, great. There's Carla as well. Okay, so it looks like we're live now. There's always a wee bit of a delay between going live and having it registering that we have people watching us. But today's a wee bit different from last week's. Firstly, from this end, we've got Richard here as well. And from the other end, we have got people from around the globe, really, I think, joining us. I think we've got people from India and Serbia and Gloucestershire. Is that right, Stephen?
That's right.
It sounds less exotic in that list, but that's okay. We can go with that. Okay, so what we really wanted to do was to go through the material for week 2, and as usual what we've done is we've had a bit of a look through the materials that are online, and then we're looking at how people are responding to those in the forums. We've generated a little list of things that we might find useful to talk about as we go through it. So, yet again, I'm going to give the little disclaimer that I'm going to be looking at different screens. I'm going to be looking at the chat screen, I'm going to be looking at the question and answer screen, Twitter, Facebook, all these different kind of things to see where people are, to see what questions people are asking us. So if at any point we seem distracted, then that's what we're doing. We're trying to figure out what's going on. So for those of you who are watching, what would be good is if you could use the Q&A app on the Hangout page, but also if you just want to use the text boxes underneath, that's absolutely fine as well. And Richard and I will try and keep an eye on it, and we'll try and answer the questions as we go. We'll pause intermittently to look at these screens. Okay, so the kind of things that we thought would be most interesting and most useful to cover today would be just to kind of recap quickly the things that we talked about last week, which were the major scales and the modes and how these things are built and how they kind of work and how they relate to each other. Then I think the next logical step from that to start bringing in this week's material would be to look at key signatures, how we work them out, do a bit of practice of that, then think about intervals, then talk about chords, major and minor chords and how they relate to each other and how we can work out what they are, and then also to look at relative minors, because this seems to be something that people are, if not interested in, perhaps even slightly confused by on forums. Just a few people, but I think for the benefit of everyone it might be worth going over that. So does that work for everyone who's in the Hangout at the moment?
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first of all, we are just going to recap the major scales and modes quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you just now, so that everyone can see. And what I'm going to do is show you Sibelius again, which is the notation software that we've been using to generate graphics. It's quite a common one that people use. And what you'll see is we've got some kind of streams of notes there that we could describe as notes, scales, we could describe as modes, but at the moment the way I'm visualizing these is just blank templates that I want to talk through how we go about actually turning them into major or minor scales. Okay, so I wonder if Stephen, just because you're at that side of my screen, I'm going to work across the way. Stephen, I wonder if you could look at the first one there on the first line. And you'll see it's a scale with a treble clef. The first note there is E. And we know this, but we're talking through it at basic terms for everyone to keep up with. The first note there is E. Now, at the moment, we've got E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And I'm asking you to turn it into E major. So I wonder, Stephen, if you wouldn't mind just talking us through how you would go about doing that, if you're comfortable with doing that, please.
How would you do that? Okay, so, oh, sorry, I can't see it now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, thanks, okay. So I need to look at the interval structure. So it's a major scale.
Mm-hmm.
So the structure is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so all I need to do is then apply that same structure to that scale.
Okay.
And so look at the first interval. So the interval is needs to be a tone. So and at the moment it's E and F. So I need to sharpen the F to make that a whole tone difference.
That's right.
Okay, and then it's a tone, so that needs to be a G sharp.
That's right.
Okay, and then the next interval step will be a semitone, so between G sharp and A is a semitone, so that doesn't need to change.
That's right.
And then the next three are tone, so A to B, so A to B is a tone, so that doesn't need to change.
That's right.
So next one is another tone, so B and C is a semitone. So we sharpened.
That's right, we need to sharpen the C.
Okay, and then between C sharp and D is another tone. So I need to sharpen D as well.
That's exactly right.
And then the last interval is a semitone, so between D and D, semitone, so that's
Exactly. So what we've got here is Stephen's talking through the process of just turning.
Zach, can I interrupt? If people could mute their microphones, it'd make the sound better.
Yeah, that's a good idea actually, Emma. Thank you very much. So anyone who's not currently talking, if you're able to mute your microphone, I think we are getting interference from other people's microphones. There we go. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so as Stephen talked us through there, we had just E to E. Now, if we're going to relate that to an instrument, we could say that it's just the white notes, if you like. We've not touched any of the ones that we would call sharps or flats. So what we did was we took E and we applied the pattern of tones and semitones, which is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, and that gave us our major pattern. So that meant that we got E to F sharp to G sharp to A to B to C sharp to D sharp. Now, interestingly, that means that in order for us to have a major scale which starts on E, we need to introduce 4 sharps, F, C, G, and D. And we'll talk more about that when we come to talk about key signatures in a wee moment. Great, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Were we able to listen to that from Zabaitis while we were doing it?
I don't know if we are going to be able to. It's not smart.
Anyway.
Okay, so we're going to look at the B flat major one now. And who wants to have a go at this? Dan and Anita? And you'll need to unmute your microphone. Are you there?
Did you ask me to do that?
Yes, if you're comfortable to do so, yeah. We're
sorry,
just gonna...
I had problems with my audio.
No problem. It's a bit scratchy actually at our end as well. So don't worry. We'll muddle through and see how we get on. So what we've got is just B to B. Again, we could call it the white notes of the piano, if you like, if we're going to talk about it in piano terms. But really, another way of describing that is just saying we've got B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. From B to B with no sharps or flats currently. And what we want to do is turn that into B flat major. And I wonder if you could just talk us through the process of how to do that.
Okay, so we would start with the B flat, and our first tone after that would be C.
That's right. So currently it's B to C, which is a semitone. So
right.
we need to flatten the B so it's B flat major. And that's actually an interesting thing that a few people have asked, and it's maybe worth just going over that again, actually, to say that yes, any pitch name that we have in the name of a scale, that's the note it starts on. So if it's B flat, it needs to start on B flat. If it's F, it needs to start on F. And it's through that we get the name for it. Yes, sorry to interrupt you, I just wanted to...
Sure, no problem. So it's B flat, C, so tone, the next tone is D.
That's right.
Then we'd have E flat.
Okay, that's right. So we've got a tone between B flat and C, a tone between C and D, so that's tone, tone. We now need a semitone. D to E as it stands is a tone. We're going to flatten the E flat so that we get a semitone there. Thank you.
Then it would be F.
That's right.
G. And
that's right.
A and B flat again.
And then back to B flat again. Great. Now, Anita, did you use exactly the same process as Stephen did? Did you think about it in terms of the tones and semitones from the tonic up?
I usually visualize a keyboard, or I'm looking at the app on my phone right now, which has the keyboard, so that makes it easier.
Okay, that's interesting. So you find looking at an instrument kind of helps
Yeah,
you?
because I'm still not used to the notes and visualizing instruments as that I've never played one
Okay.
before. So
That's good, and that's certainly a useful thing for people to do in general. I think if you've got experience of an instrument, by all means, when you're doing music theory, link it back to this, because obviously theory doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Does that mean you play by ear on the keyboard?
no, I have an app which plays the notes. So I mean, I either look at it or I play it.
Right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, it is the same process in a way, because looking at the keyboard, in fact, more easily shows you when you're playing a tone or a semitone. So that's yeah.
Excellent. That's great. So that both people have done it in similar ways. The other way, of course, to do it would be to think backwards from the key signature, if you like, is to think about what the key signature of any given scale is, and then you can work backwards to plot the notes in from there. But that's something that we'll talk more about when we come to the key signature. So this last one that we want to look at here is slightly different to the other two that we talked about, because actually, as you can see, it's turned it into D minor. So Emma, I wonder if you want to take a go at this one for us, please. What we have at the moment, again, I'm just talking through it. I know you guys know this. I'm talking through this just so that we're all on the same page. We've got D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Okay, that's again just D to D with no sharps or flats. As it stands at the moment, it's a different type of mode that we've spoken about. Emma, do you know which one it is at the moment as it stands?
As it stands, that looks like the Dorian mode, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, as it stands, it's D Dorian. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So what we'd like you to do is turn it into minor, and what I'm going to do is just specify that just a wee bit more for you, and say, can you turn it into the harmonic minor, please? Obviously, because the harmonic minor doesn't change in its ascending and descending form, we'll just do it one way so that it's easier to get through it.
Okie doke.
Thank you. I don't know if we've lost you, Emma, but we're not getting any sound from you at the moment. No, we're not getting any sound from you, I'm afraid.
We get someone else to do a sound check. Oh.
Has that fixed
it? There we go.
There we go. That's fixed it. Thank you very much. We had the same
Okay.
problem with Stephen when we were doing the sound check, actually, so don't worry. Okay, so sorry about that. If you can
try again.
Into the harmonic minor, please.
I did say brace yourselves, so.
Brace yourselves. Okay. Well, brace.
Right. First.
Okay, Emma, I don't know if you can hear us, but you've disappeared again.
No.
No, nothing at all. Okay, and you can probably hear us, and if so, please accept our apology. We're going to just jump over to someone else just now, and hopefully your sound will come back, but it certainly worked when you logged off and logged back on again. Harun? Hi there, could you unmute your microphone, please? There we go.
Can I skip the question? Minor, I am not familiar. Minor, not familiar.
You're not familiar with minor? Okay, that's no problem at all. No problem at all. Tim, how about yourself?
Yeah, I can give it a try.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm a visual person, so I'll look at the keyboard first, and then I only go by rules, really, at this point. So I basically, for harmonic, I find the 6th degree and I drop it a semitone. So then I get a B flat.
Yep.
And then I know the rule to raise the 7th. So then I get a sharp on the leading tone, which gives me a leading tone.
That's right, exactly. So that's interesting, actually. So did you think about that from starting on the Dorian mode and then lowering the 6? Is that how you thought about
the
doing
original? Where I got the original rules probably from school, but I just followed the rule.
Great. No, that's interesting. It's not the idea of lowering the 6 is not something I've necessarily come across before. Another way, of course, that we could have done this is that we could have thought to ourselves, okay, and it results in exactly the same answer. So please don't get me wrong. You're absolutely correct. Another way that we could have done it that people are maybe more familiar with is we could have thought to ourselves, okay, so D minor harmonic. Okay, cool. So we need to make D harmonic minor. Well, how do we do that? Well, really what we want to do is figure out what major scale it's related to. We want to figure out what its relative major is. And actually, when you're in the minor key and you're trying to find the relative major, the tonic of the relative major is the 3rd degree up. Okay? So D to E to F is the 3rd degree. So what we could say to ourselves is, okay, this has the same sharps or flats as F major, which, as you rightly say, would give us B flat. You, to turn it into a harmonic minor, did exactly the right thing. You raised the 7th, which gives us that rhythm note to take us on to the tonic. So that's 2 different ways of going about it.
And then can I just go from a completely different way again and look at this in terms of tone-tone, semitone structure from the beginning? So that, again, first of all, let's just say we don't even know if this is the Dorian. Okay, we just don't know anything. So we need a minor. So for a minor, we need a tone and then a semitone. So D to E is a tone. And then we have a semitone from E to F. So that's fine. We've now created the beginning of the minor. Right? Then we need a tone between F and G. Oh, sorry, but a tone between the minor 3rd and the 4th. Say, right? Then we need another tone between the 4th and the 5th. And then if we want the harmonic minor, you would now, this is the part you have to learn, the harmonic minor, yes, needs a flattened 6th. So we need a semitone between 5th and 6th. And then we need the raised 7th, as you've all talked about. And that's the interesting part, because here we don't have a tone or a semitone. We have, correctly, we should call it an augmented tone, a tone that's been made a semitone sharper. But you could also, quite frankly, think of it as it is a minor 3rd. It's the jump of a minor 3rd. And then we've got the semitone between 7 and back to the tonic. Now, that means that the harmonic minor, when you play it, sounds kind of interesting. And often, for many people, it sounds like something vaguely... Yeah, play it. Zach's going to play it for us in the key. And so people might describe that variously as sounding something exotic, sort of, you know, I mean, Middle Eastern scales are similar to that, not quite the same, in fact. The gypsy scales, there are all sorts of various world musics that have similar scales to that with this jump of the minor 3rd. But what we really all need to understand about this harmonic minor, it's kind of an artificial construct, and it was done to help describe the way that European, mainly classical music, was evolving during the 17th century. So that's the sort of background I give on that. But yeah, there's 3 different ways of finding a harmonic minor.
Great. Okay, so how are people feeling about that? That really was just spending the first kind of 15 minutes or so recapping last week. Tim's got thumbs up. Any other thumbs up?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. It's like some wacky game show. Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So the next thing that we want to go on and talk about is something that we've alluded to a couple of times while we've been talking about that, and this is key signatures. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to look at a key signature and how to determine what it is. Now, what we should say is that key signatures can really signify 2 different keys, the major or the relative minor. And we'll talk about that as we go through. But generally, when we look at a key signature, we look at it and we describe it in terms of the major key that it represents, and everything else we can derive from there. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to sharing our screen, and we're going to talk about key signatures, as we have said. So what we've done is we've jumped over to the app that we've talked about a million times now, actually, which is musictheory.net. Really, really useful, and I'd recommend that anyone who wants to practice this stuff gets on it. Not only does it have interesting articles and lessons to help us understand what's going on, it's also got really great, useful, interactive exercises. Okay, so let's just jump straight into it, because I'm aware that we're spending a wee bit of time on all this introductory material. So, this is a key signature. It's on the screen there for us to see. I think everyone can see it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask someone to talk us through how to do it, and I wonder if, is it Mario Julio? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, that's
yes.
Correct.
Excellent. You're joining us from Peru.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well, I wonder, are you happy talking us through how we work out what this key signature is? Do you know how to do it? Do you have a method for it? Are you completely new to that side of things?
I've been reading that yesterday for a couple of hours. I think that I can do it.
Okay. Please feel free to talk us through it then.
This key signature is, I think, is B flat.
B flat, did you say?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's not actually the key signature for B flat. I wonder, can you talk us through the process of how you thought that it was B flat? I mean, don't worry at all. There's no problem that it's not.
Okay.
You could talk us through it is useful.
I got confused. The note. It is well, the process. I remember it was to take the second from the right.
Yeah, absolutely. The penultimate flat, the second last one.
And this must be A flat. Then.
That's exactly right. So this is the key signature of A flat major, because we look at the second last flat. That's a nice wee shortcut for doing it. And that second last flat is the tonic. That's right. Great. Thank you very much, Mario Julio. Carla, are you with us now? Carla?
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear us? Okay.
It's like flickering. The voice is going and they're coming.
Okay. Headphones may be useful. You may have headphones on. I can't see. That sometimes helps. Okay, let's go back to Stephen just now while Carla's getting some headphones on. Stephen, could you talk us through the one that's on screen currently, please?
Yes, okay. So it's a sharp key.
That's
so
right.
My method for identifying the name of the sharp key is to look at the last sharp on the right and the semitone above. Oops, sorry, I've just lost it.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so the last sharp on the right is an A sharp, so that's a semitone below B, so it looks like it's in the key of B major.
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely right. So I guess what we would say is, yes, you're right, a semitone, but in some cases we may be able to describe the interval of a semitone differently. So what we could say is a minor second as well, and that's another way to ensure that we actually go up to the next note name as well as just being a semitone up. So you're absolutely right. A sharp is a semitone below B. B is the key that this key signature represents. Another way of thinking about that and another way of phrasing that is to say that the last sharp in a sharp key signature is the leading note, is the 7th degree of a major scale. So if we look at that again, we've got A sharp. A sharp is the 7th degree of a scale. Which scale is it the 7th degree of? It's the 7th degree of B. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Stephen. Carla, are you with us again? Okay, Carla's having trouble. She's just texted us to say that she's just told to memorize the key signature. Okay, what happens if you had a memory fail, though? What happens if you kind of had a bit of a malfunction in your memory and you couldn't remember? No, not hearing us. Okay, well, I would say that it's always useful to kind of try and have a system for doing it. That said, the next one that we're about to look at, the one that's on screen currently, is the one that I would say probably is most important to think about in terms of memory. Emma, are you with us?
Yes, I think so.
You are indeed. That's perfect. Loud and clear. Thank you. Okay, can we talk about the one that's on screen at the moment? Now, some people might look at that and say, what key signature? There isn't a key signature. There's nothing there.
The key signature is C major.
That's right. It's a key signature of C major. And this is one that maybe does, when we're doing it in this way, rely on memory. There's no sharps or flats. That's the key signature for C major. Absolutely. Okay, cool. So let's jump over to Sibelius again. And instead of looking at key signatures and identifying what they are, let's make some. So let's jump over to Sibelius again. I'm going to show you that on screen. Okay, so what we did was we said, let's turn this scale into E major, or let's turn this into B flat major, or let's turn this into D minor. Just at this end, what we're going to do is we're going to run through these really quickly so that we can get through as much material as possible. When we look at this scale of E major, we've got an E, then we've got an F sharp, then a G sharp, then an A, then a B, then a C sharp, then a D sharp. So actually that's 4 sharps that are sitting there in the flow of the music, and it's extra information for us to look at when we're going through it. It's more black on the page, more ink on the page that may confuse us if we were trying to read it at sight. And of course, as we all know by now, the convention for dealing with this and taking out some of that information but putting it right at the start is so that we can use key signatures. Now, let's do exactly that. So what I'm going to do in Sibelius is I'm going to take the key signature of E major, which is the 4 sharps, and I'm going to put that in front of this scale that we built. Now, as we see, the F sharp and the G sharp disappear, the C sharp and the D sharp disappear, but actually they've not disappeared. They have just been represented at the front with this key signature. So what that means is that we've got the F sharp, the C sharp, the G sharp, and the D sharp in the key signature. That means any F, C, G, or D will be sharp unless we're told otherwise. If we're going to be told otherwise, it'll be with something like a natural sign that would cancel out one of the parts of the key signature.
Yeah.
Similarly with B flat major.
Notice Sibelius keeps changing everything. So
yeah, because it's part of a process. So similarly with B flat major, we put the B flat and the E flat in. We've stripped it out. It's much clearer to look at. It's much easier to get the hang of. Any B flat or E flat, and incidentally, we should just say that it's not just this B or this E. It's any B flat or E flat across the spectrum, really. Then we're going to look at the D harmonic minor, and I'm going to bring someone in for this one. So, Carla, are you back with us again? I know you're struggling. I don't want to exclude you. No? Okay, Anita?
God. I can't see any of you guys. It's just me. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you, Carla. If you, I don't know if you take your mouse and just put it on the picture on the screen, perhaps we'll jump up. If you can see little pictures of us at the bottom, hover on any one of us, and we'll all pop up to see you. But Anita, yeah. I wonder if we can ask you to talk us through how we would deal with the key signature for D harmonic minor. And the reason I'm asking you that one is because actually it's interesting. We've got different things in there. We've got B flat and we've got a C sharp in there. And it would be interesting to talk about what we do. So obviously we never have a key signature that's got a B flat or a C sharp, B flat and a C sharp in it. We never mix sharps and flats in a key signature. So how do we deal with this one?
I'm not really sure about this one.
Okay, no, that's a good answer.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, go for it, please.
I think what you'd do is you'd look for the relative major.
That's exactly right.
Hello?
Emma, you've disappeared again.
But we got relative major.
We got exactly what you said. We're going to look for the relative major. The relative major is, as we discussed, it's a minor third up. It's a third degree from the bottom of the minor scale, and that's F major. F major has a B flat in it. We can work that out by saying tone, tone, semitone between the third and the fourth. That gives us a B flat. So that's a B flat in there, and we know that we need to raise the seventh to get the leading tone, so we've got the B flat and the C sharp. So, as you rightly said, we go with the key signature of the relative major. which has got the B flat in it, that's from F. This C sharp always remains as an accidental because, as Richard said, it's a construct. It doesn't really exist in the key system in the way that we talked about things. It's that raised seventh there that actually tells us that we're in the minor key.
And you will see that because when you're playing music in classical music that's in the minor key, you'll see a lot more accidentals. You'll see more sharps, naturals, or flats, depending. So in a way, the key signature shows us the natural minor that we talked about in week 1, what we could also call the Aeolian mode. Therefore, it's nearly always going to get altered quite a bit.
Exactly. We're going to talk about the reasons for that in future weeks.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm noticing that there are some questions in the question and answer app, so we're going to jump over to that just now.
I stopped it.
Would it be incorrect to identify a minor key rather than the major? That is, we could identify the current signature as well as A minor as well. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's a question from James Morgan, who said when you see the key signature for C major on the screen, you could absolutely say that that's the key signature for A minor as well, if you're happy enough with working out the relative majors and minors. That's absolutely right.
We really have to wait until we've seen the information or heard the piece of music before we would know just from looking at a piece of music.
Does that mean you just scan through the whole piece of music?
Yeah, you're going to look
to the accent, the sharpened 6s and 7s.
Well, or you might also be looking to see, for instance, in the example of C major, if you see a preponderance of C's at the beginning and the end, there's a good chance the piece is in C major. Or if you see, more in the way of A and chords built up A, you might expect A minor. I should also add, though, that if there's no key signature in contemporary music and sometimes in jazz and popular, it might also mean there's no key. And that's one confusion.
Exactly. Or that the key of the music changes so frequently that it doesn't make sense to write a key signature.
That sounds like the advanced course.
That sounds like the advanced course.
So don't worry about that. But just know that if you were ever looking at some music and it didn't seem to make sense to you, that could easily be the situation.
Exactly. So, okay, we're going to just keep going on with this because obviously we've got a lot to get through. What we're going to talk about now is intervals, and we're going to talk about the identification of the intervals and also how to write them. So again, we're going to jump over to our good old friend, the musictheory.net app. And we're going to look at interval identification. Great, and that is the screen that I need up. Okay, so Richard's going to talk you through some interval identification for a little bit while I run through the Google Hangout page and try and answer some of the questions that people are throwing at us.
Okay, well, I'll start us off with this first one. So we've got, well, at the most basic level, we've got a space and a line, and if we need to work it out, we realize that the space is an E and the line is an F. Now remember, we count the notes themselves. So we count lines and spaces. So in this case, we're going to count E, space, F, line, 2. So that's a second. Then we're going to have to refer to the keyboard or remember our white note diatonic scale to know that in this case, that second is a minor second. Right? If there was a sharp in front of the F, it would be a major second, but as we got it here, it's a minor second. Is that all right with everyone?
Okay, so that's one way of doing it, and as Richard talked through it, that's a really good way to do it. So if you're happy with using an instrument to look back to it, if you look at E, then you look at F, you see that they're right next to each other. So if you're on a guitar, for instance, and you've got the open E string, the first fret on is F, so that means that they're a semitone apart. E to F is some sort of second. Because it's a semitone, we call it a minor second. Another way to do it, and this is the way that I did in the extra video, is to look at the lowest note of the two and imagine that we're in the major key of that note. So I'm going to look at that lowest note and I'm going to say, okay, we're in E major. Okay, so E major has 4 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. And if we look at E to F, we see that that F isn't a sharp. So if it was E to F sharp, it would be a major second, because F sharp is the second degree of the major scale. Because it's E to F, that means that interval is a semitone smaller, the gap's less wide by a semitone. So what we could say is that a major interval made smaller by a semitone, we could then describe that as a minor interval. So that's another way that we can get to calling this a minor second. Okay, let's ask some of you guys to do some of these. We're going to just say that that's a minor second so it goes away. Fantastic. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. These are coming up at random, incidentally. We've not picked this one for you. That would be borderline cruel. Okay, so let's have a look at what's going on here. Who wants to volunteer to have a go at this one for us? Tim? Yeah, great. If you could unmute your microphone and give us a talk through this. How do you go about that?
Visual person here, so I'll go to my scale, so I know that's a B. You go to second down, so I know I'm in a B flat, and then I know E to A. So then if I can't figure it out right away, I'll just look at my keyboard, and then I'll go E to A flat. So E to A is 4. Is that right? No. E to C is a 6.
Good, exactly. So
yes.
E to C is a 6. What I would say is, just before you go any further, let's make sure you've had a look at the key signature, because we're not dealing with E to C, actually. We're dealing with...
We're not doing E to C?
Well, in a way we are, but if you just look at the key signature at the start of this example, actually you'll see there's B flat and an E flat. So actually we're looking at E flat to C flat.
Okay, so I got a 6, and then I guess the rule in a major scale is 6 is major 6. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, keep going with that.
So that's the interval is the major 6, but then I flatten the C, and I've got a minor 6. No, I got a minor 6.
Okay. So let's put that in and see what happens.
Which is 9 semitones.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. So you talked through that really nicely. We've got the E flat to the C would be a major 6, because C is the 6th degree of E flat major, but because the C was lowered, it was C flat, that meant that interval was made smaller, so a major interval made smaller is described as minor. Fantastic, well done, thank you very much. Okay, let's jump over to this one. Let's have someone else having a go at this. Mario Julio?
Sorry, I haven't read about intervals yet.
Okay, no problem at all. Harun? Hello, if you unmute your microphone.
Pass.
Pass, okay. Yeah, no problem, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Carla, are you back with us yet? No. Okay, Emma, would you want to give this one a bash?
Yes, I'll give this a go.
Thank you.
Right, looking at the positions on the staves, we've got a 5th of some sort.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're in the key of F because we remember this one with just a B flat. There would normally be a D in an F major. So this is a flattened F. So this would be a diminished 5th.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What's interesting about that is the way that you went about doing it. Now, it works, it's absolutely right, and that's one way of going about it. But you looked at the key signature and you said that we were in the key of F. Now, you're absolutely right, that's what that key signature suggests. Some people have got a lot of trouble about thinking about that key signature and how it relates to these notes. And actually, what we could say is in some ways it's irrelevant past the point at which it tells you if the notes are sharp or flat. Mm-hmm. So actually, I would look at that. The way I would look at that is I would see, okay, that's a B flat. Neither of these two notes is a B, therefore it doesn't have any effect on either of the notes that I'm looking at. So I wouldn't even worry about it, to be totally honest with you. that's the way I would go about it, and this is just personal. It may be useful for some people to think about it that way. What I would then say is that the G is the lowest note. So I would push myself, imagine myself being in the key of G major, and then I would think to myself, okay, so G to D, that's a fifth. Okay, if we were in the key of G major, there definitely wouldn't be a D flat, there would be a D natural. Because that D's been flattened, that means it's a perfect fifth that's been lowered by a semitone or by a half step, and therefore a perfect interval that's made smaller is diminished, becomes a diminished interval. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yes, it does. I think what I did is I misapplied the method that you were trying to recommend.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't that you had a maverick technique. It was just a.
No. It's just I managed to get it wrong, but come up with the right answer.
Okay, that's no problem. Let's try another one.
Can I just briefly mention though that some people you may want to think in terms of the fact that if you were in F major, just pretending you're in F major on that one, that you would think that G to D is note 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 because the D is a 6, and then you might do some simple arithmetic and make that and realize that 2 up to 6 is a fifth as well. So that could be the other way, especially those of you who are sitting behind the keyboard and are quite comfortable playing up and down your keyboard. You may find yourself thinking that way too. So if you have done that, it's not wrong at all.
No, absolutely not. It's just there are different ways to go about doing it. Everyone works differently and come from different places. We're trying to show us as many different ways as possible. So that is fantastic. Do any of you guys on screen have any questions about intervals? No? Okay. Let's try one more for good measure, and then we will move on. So we said that this is a diminished fifth. If I click D5, if I can find it, there we go, that'll disappear. Okay, so this is a good example of thinking about the key signature side of things again. So I wonder, Stephen, are you cool to have a wee go at this one for us, please? Microphone, there you go.
Yep, there we are. Okay, so let me see. So it's D to F sharp. So D to E is a second, and then E to F sharp is another second. So altogether, that's a major third.
Yeah, that's right. So that's one way of doing it. We can kind of do it additively. We can look at one, look at the other, and then put the two together as you did. That's one way to do it, and very well it worked. Another way to do it is just to count. D is 1, E would be 2, F is 3, so it's a third of some description. Now, this is interesting just to look at the key signature again. Again, we've got this key signature of F major, but actually it's kind of, again, an irrelevance because neither of the two notes that we're looking at is a B that would be affected by the flat on the B line. So we're looking at D. Imagine that we're in the key of the major because it's an easy one to work to. So I noticed that on the Hangout page, Laurie Campa has asked, why do we imagine that we're in the major key? Well, really the reason that we imagine that we're in the major keys is because we can maybe presume that it's probably the thing that we're most comfortable with. It's the thing that we know most. In some ways it's most fundamental to us because it's what we build everything else from. Because it's what we build everything else from, if we can use that as our kind of master template, it's an easy way to go about doing it. In theory, you could, if you reconfigure the rules, you could do it from a minor scale or do it from any other scale you want. We're just using that as a useful point of reference. So D to F would be a minus third, but because we're imagining we're in the key of D major, D to F sharp is the third degree of D major, and therefore, as Stephen rightly said, we can call that a major third. Fantastic. It seems like we're getting through the intervals nicely, and again we've got the forums and we've got all the social media so people can get in touch with us if they want to. But I think if no one else has any other questions about intervals, what we could do is jump on to looking at some chords quickly before we just open it up to any other questions. Now I think another nice way to think about looking at chords is to jump onto this musictheory.net, which I've got up for us, and to look at them. So there's two things that I've noticed when we've been talking about chords so far. Firstly, people aren't 100% sure how to work out the difference between a major chord and a minor chord, and that's really easily sorted. We'll go through it just now. And actually, you'll see that the way I've set this exercise up is that we're only going to look at major triads and minor triads. We'll talk much, much, much more about chords in greater detail in weeks 4 and 5 of this course. So just now, we're just going to look at major triads and minor triads. That's the first thing. People are unsure of the difference between the two. And the second thing is that people have said, does it have to be stacked up 1, 3, 5 for the triads?
No.
No, it absolutely does not have to be stacked up.
We can
1, 3, 5.
choose to take the bottom note and put it up at the top. Then we can choose to take the third of the chord, the next note up, and put that up at the top.
That's
we can also actually spread them anyway, but what we really look at is which note,
note
is at the bottom.
That's right. So we're interested in that when we're trying to figure out the what we call the inversion of the chord. But at this stage, we're just really simply going to look for what chord type it is, or what the quality of the chord is. So really, as Richard says, the notes can be spread anywhere, across a piano, or across a guitar, or across an orchestra, if you like. It doesn't matter where the notes are. What we need to do is work out what the notes are. So what we really want to do is we want to look at the pool of notes that we've got available to us and try and put them in some sort of order so that there is a third between every note. So as we look at this chord as it stands at the moment, we've got a type of A, then a type of C. Okay, that's fine. They are a third apart. But then from the C to the note we've got at the top, actually we've got some type of F, and that's a fourth between these two. So what we want to do is we want to work out a way to get these into an order where we've got thirds all the way through. Now, without too much jiggery-pokery, we can look at that and we can say, okay, maybe if that F was down here at the bottom, that would be that would create the third. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a pencil to draw it. Probably another line here. Okay, it's not working. So if we had the F at the bottom, we'd have F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. So once we've got it worked out and we know what our lowest note is, we can describe it as some type of chord with a root that we have a name for. Okay, so in this case, if we take F sharp and put it at the bottom, we've got F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. That's stacked up in thirds. When it's stacked up in thirds, it's the note that's at the bottom that we describe it as. So this is a type of F sharp chord. So what I want to do is kick this over to someone in the group now. Can we go to Mario Julio? Mario, Julio, have you had a look at the triads part of this week's material, the chords part, thinking about major and minor chords?
Okay, sorry, are you asking me to find if it is a major or minor triad?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I think it is a minor triad.
Okay, what makes you think that it's a minor triad?
Yeah, I think it is because it has three semitones from the first note.
So what we're saying here is that the lowest note here is actually the F sharp, if we're going to arrange this as a nice triad.
So can you make the F sharp go to the bottom in your imagination so it's on the space rather than sitting at the top line?
Okay, let's think about another way of doing this. Okay,
you can see your cursor.
You can see the cursor moving. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we've got now, I've changed this interval because actually I think it might be nice if we look at this just in its most simple form. Okay, so we've changed the chord now. What we've got is a B flat, a D, and an F. So this is just a nice straightforward triad. The lowest note is B flat, so it's a B flat something triad. The something will be either the word major or minor, and we need to work out which it is. Now, between the root and the fifth of either a major or minor triad, we've got a perfect fifth, so we don't need to worry about the interval between the lowest note and the highest note. The one that we're interested in here is the interval between the lowest note and the next one up, which is the third of the chord. So we need to work out if this is a major third or a minor third, and that's what's going to tell us if we've got a major triad or a minor triad. Again, this is looking back at week 1 material, so what we want to know is how many semitones, if you like, that's one way to do it, between this one, the B flat, and the D, or if we can just work out the interval exactly in the way that we have done in the previous examples that we were just talking about. Mario Julio, do you want to take this one again? The microphone?
Sorry. I said I'm not pretty sure about it.
Okay, no problem. Tim, do you know what's going on with this one? Have you got a thought on this one?
Yeah. So it's in, I always call this the snowman form.
Snowman form, good. Yeah, that's nice. You really are a visual guy.
So the root is the first one, and that's a B. So that we know that's a flat. So then I look at my keyboard, and then I go to D, and I can count out the semitones or listen to it, and I hear a major triad. So I'm already thinking it's going to be a major triad.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just need to figure out what the top of it is. Is it going to be minor? Major. So
okay, that's right.
That. Yeah, it's an F. So then I look at it and I can see just right away on the keyboard that it's a minor third, and then I can hear a minor third. So
okay,
it's a major. It's a major triad.
That's exactly right. So it's a major triad. So what you did there was you looked at the bottom note to the middle note, and you worked out that that was a major third by counting the semitones. Then you looked at the middle note to the top note and worked out that that was a minor third, again by counting the semitones. So that's fine if we have a major third between the root and the third, and then a minor third between the third and the fifth, and that's one way of constructing a major triad. That's absolutely right. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And you were using your ears in there to verify it. Something that might be interesting is also just to think about the fact that between the B flat and the F, that's a perfect fifth. The one in the middle is the one that gives us the quality because it's the third. From B flat to D, well, we know that that's third, and we know that D is the third note of B flat major. Therefore, that is a major triad. That's another way to look at it. Let's do another one of these. Okay, so we've got this one on the screen now. Does anyone want to try this one? Anyone want to volunteer? Or yes, Stephen? Yes, please.
Okay, so let's have a look. So stacked up, so we've got E to F to G. So the difference between E and G is a minor third, so it's a minor triad. Then it's G to A to B, so it's a major third on top, so it's a E minor triad.
Excellent. Okay. E minor triad. And again, you've kind of looked at the different components. You've looked at the bottom half of the triad, so you've looked at the first to the third, and you've said that that's minor. Then you've looked at the third to the fifth, and you've said that's major. Very good. Again, that's another way of looking at it.
It's important to point out that you did it from a kind of a scalar approach. So you imagined the notes in between that aren't written, just to be clear, everyone. So while it just shows E to G, you imagined the F in between using, well, basically an imaginary or a real keyboard concept to find it. So that's good. That's a scalar approach to finding the scale. And then it makes sense to you that it is 1, 3, and 5, for instance, that made that chord. Or, you know, the root, the third, and the fifth.
Exactly. Okay, so does anyone want to go over chords again? Anyone want to do anything more on chords? Does anyone have any questions about determining whether it's a major or minor triad? At this stage, that's all you need to be able to do. We're going to talk a lot more about it in weeks 4 and 5. But at this stage, it's an interesting thing to be able to do, is to determine whether a chord is major or minor by looking at the third. Does anyone have any other questions on that front? No? Great. Okay, so we have exhausted our list that we had made up that we generated from looking through the forums. I'm going to jump over to the Q&A app again just now. I'm going to see if there are any other questions. James Morgan again has been really helpful throughout this question and answer session actually. Says that we can also utilize the idea that chords built on the various scale degrees follow the pattern of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. That's really interesting. That's definitely a good way of looking at it. However, we need to work out exactly what key we were in for that. So if we say that we're in the key of C, as determined by the key signature, and we look at this and say that it's built on the third degree, if you're at the stage in your music theory development that you know that the chord built on chord 3 is minor, then that's great. That's absolutely another way to go about doing it.
Why is there no minor fifth? I mean, someone asked that. Someone asked why there is no minor fifth. There is a minor fifth. It's the diminished fifth. So that's the one that we had earlier, where it comes down by a semitone from the perfect fifth. And at the moment, we're going to mainly keep that to the diminished chord that comes at the top of the major scale, at degree 7.
Exactly. So we never call it the minor fifth. A perfect interval lowered by a semitone, as Richard says, diminished. Okay. I'm just looking through to see if there's anything else. It doesn't look like there's anything else that we need to talk about particularly. One last look at the Hangout page. No. Okay, so does anyone else on screen have anything else to ask? Anything else that we've talked about or could do with clarifying? No?
I have one. I don't know whether the topic of modes is getting a little tiresome now because there's been a lot on it.
No.
When I look at, say, the Dorian mode, I have a D, for C major. I end up with a chord for D minor, which uses just the notes that are in C major. But if I write out the D minor scale, I've got a B flat and a C sharp in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it always the case that if the D minor is only part of a D minor chord that's going to be compatible, if you like, in the sense of use the same notes of the C major chord when you start talking Dorian modes and chords and scales?
That's interesting. So maybe what we should do is just try to separate the idea of keys and modes a wee bit in the first instance.
That'd be helpful.
Okay, so let's think about modes as being kind of subsets of keys. So
ways of using keys.
Exactly, ways of using keys. That's a really nice way to describe it. So it's a different path through the scale, through the key, if you like. So if we've got the Dorian mode, that's the second mode. If we were in the key of C, we would say that that's D Dorian. You're absolutely right, the chord that that's associated with, and if we take the first, the third, and fifth degree of the D Dorian mode, we get a D minor chord. That's absolutely right. Yes, we could also play the D minor scale over the top of that, but actually this is where we're getting to the stage of confusing scales and keys. D minor is a key, or a description of a chord. If we refer to D Dorian as just another way of describing D minor, then actually what we're not doing is crediting the fact that it's built from the C major scale, which therefore means that it's got a different sound, it's in a different harmonic context, and it would be used differently.
Yeah. I think we also have to be aware that this course is classically orientated, and as such we recognize major keys and minor keys. And other things are named modes almost as a subset of that. Whereas if you say you're into folk music and that Dorian mode, or in many other musics around the world and much popular music, that Dorian mode could effectively be acting like a key. Now, I don't want to make that confusing, but in other words, you asked if you play a D minor chord, then if we were talking classical music, we start thinking in terms of the key of D minor with B flat and harmonic minors and melodic minor. But if we were playing a piece of folk music and I play that D minor chord, I'm going to be using it with white notes, and I'm going to play a G major chord and a C major chord and do all sorts of other things, and I can make it modal. In fact, have we thrown up the mode video yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because there's the mode video where Zach and I are basically doing that. We are confining ourselves to the notes of the mode in order to create that feel, instead of worrying about being in a classical type of major or minor key. Does that make sense?
It did. Your demonstration, I did watch the video. It did make sense. But I wasn't. But I then had a look at another video on YouTube where they play "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" in each of the modes. You may have seen it, and I wasn't. And as they went through it, they were displaying the stave, and the key change as they went through from the different modes.
Yeah.
And
They made it sound different.
and that made that sort of muddled my mind.
Can I
Yes.
very respectfully suggest that maybe that's not the most helpful illustration? Because
Okay.
actually what they're not doing is playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, because Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is an Ionian
Yes.
melody.
Da-da-da-da-da.
What they're doing is
Yeah.
they're taking similar intervals, shifting the goalposts and creating an effect. They're not using different modes really.
The transposing.
Yeah,
Not transposing even. They're just actually shifting the very structure that we talked about in the first week, and therefore make a completely new tune, really. I know it's the same sort of shape of tune, but it's a new tune. If I was to try to sing Happy Birthday in a Dorian mode, no one's going to feel like it's their birthday. Because it's going to sound weird, you know.
It's their last one.
Yeah, so really it's not even transposing, it's really just shifting it.
Exactly. So in some ways, that may be useful for some people, and I know that some people have commented on the forums that they did find that useful. It may well be that they've got a different understanding of modes, or that they've maybe used modes differently. But actually, as an illustration of how the sound changes when you're using different modes, I don't feel it's particularly useful. And if I was you, I wouldn't get too hung up on that, because
So basically, what
it
you're
could be
saying.
confusing.
So basically, what you're saying then is the modes is there's a collection of songs and music that is written in each mode, and they have a general character to them.
I think that
Yes.
would be...
Yeah, you could. I mean, it's subjective.
And so,
but
without actually being one particular song, translated into a different mode, it doesn't make sense because it's a different song.
It becomes a different
it becomes
song, I think.
something different, actually.
Because the intervals between the notes are different.
Yes.
Yeah, and the reason why we thought about different ways to present the modes demonstration, the reason why we just kind of improvised using those notes was to give the feel and the character that the mode, i.e. that subset, that permutation of the major scale, gives, was just so that we could demonstrate that without any real cultural reference. And I think if you put too much weight on it, it becomes something different.
Yeah, it didn't scratch my perfectionist mind, though.
Okay. Okay, absolutely fine. Okay, so the other thing, just while we're on modes, that I've got a little note about that says people are saying things like the Dorian in the key of C or the Phrygian in the key of C. What you would do is you would always use you would talk about it in terms of its modal tonic, or the lowest note. So if we are saying the Phrygian in C, we call that E Phrygian, yeah, because it's built on E.
Yeah.
And actually, by saying that it's saying that it's the E Phrygian, that's actually tacitly implying or tacitly stating that actually we're in the key of C, or it's built from the key of C. Similarly, if we were in the key of A major, we'd be talking about the F sharp Aeolian. We wouldn't say the Aeolian mode in the key of F sharp. We're talking about the Aeolian mode. We know that that's built on the sixth. We can say which note it's built on, and by saying F sharp Aeolian, we can work backwards and say, well, if F sharp is the sixth, we have to be in the key of A. So that's just a note in terminology, really, that it's useful to always describe it based on the note that it starts on. Okay, so we've been going for a long time now, and I think people may well be getting bored. People at the bottom of the screen have done so well. Thank you so much for joining in. Hopefully this has been useful to people. Again, as we say, this was really a live tutorial. It was talking through ways of doing things. It was looking at how different people do things. So hopefully this way of presenting this information to you is useful. I'm really talking to the people who are not on screen now, I suppose. Hopefully you've been able to look at how some of your peers are working and see if this chimes with you. Maybe if it doesn't, maybe if you've got different ways of doing it. The forums are the perfect place to discuss these things. Please keep getting involved. The social media is great as well. Spend as much time as you want talking to people, because really that's the value of the MOOC, is the fact that you've got these many, many thousands of people that are willing to share their way of doing things. You got anything to put on the end of that?
Fine. I'm reading some things that we might bring up in the forum later. That one.
Yeah. So if you're writing a piece of music in one of the modes, there would be no sharps or flats in the key signature. Okay, so this is Judy Birmingham has said.
Yeah.
So if you're writing a piece of music in one of the modes, there would be no sharps or flats in the key signature. The character of the mode would just be apparent in the scale runs and 1, 4, and 5 chords used. Okay, that's a really interesting point to bring up. And maybe one that's too big for this video.
We might put some in the forum on this.
Maybe worth putting it up on the forum. We should answer it really quickly and say that you may or may not use the key signature, depending on whether you want sharps or flats knocking about. If we were in the key of A major, for instance, and we were writing that F sharp Aeolian, 6th mode of A major, if we didn't have a key signature, we'd have F sharps, C sharps, and G sharps flying around the place whenever we encountered one of those notes. We would, in that case, then write the key signature of A major. But the fact that it would gravitate around the F sharp would be an important note and important points in the bar, so rhythmically important parts. There would be a real predominance of the F sharp occurring, perhaps the A, the C sharp as well, to build the feeling that is built around the mode and the chord built on chord 6. Using the key signature doesn't take us away from that. All the key signature does is says, when we've got an F sharp, C sharp, or G sharp, play them as sharps. It just tidies up the visual. It's
purely a written convention. A folk musician playing in F sharp Aeolian would just be thinking they're in F sharp Aeolian, really. They wouldn't be thinking necessarily that they were in, you know, actually, yeah, they wouldn't necessarily think A major. They're just thinking that scale, you know.
Exactly, but
we'll write a bit more about that.
Judy's absolutely right, though. The character would be apparent either sonically or visually from the scale runs.
And from the chords that we choose.
The chords that we choose, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would be chords 1, 4, and 5 when we're talking about modes.
No, it's
that
different.
Is a discussion for week 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Stephen Lafferty asked on the chat that when we get to the end, if you could see you.
If you can see us.
You can't see you.
Yeah, of course you can.
Are we here?
We can organise that.
No, I mean your screen. Your screencast. There you are. Hi, guys.
Are we?
Hey, there we go. No one's ever asked to see us before, actually. You must be a glutton for punishment.
Next time, dress better, okay?
Yeah, that's right. Wash your face. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
I hope that was useful to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.